Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. For those of you who are waiting on Zoom, thank you so much for being patient while we got our technical situation set up. This morning, we are in beautiful San Felipe Pueblo. We're here at the San Felipe Library. So we're going to be conducting this workshop remotely here at the Pueblo, and then we'll also be doing our San Felipe distribution here today as well. Folks can come by the library until about 1:30 or as soon as supplies run out. Again, we just want to thank everybody here at the staff, the library staff, for helping us to collaborate and get this program off and running. My name is Kateri Zuni. I'm the co-director for the Center of Southwest Culture, and this is Sembrando Salud workshop number 2 for this year, where we're going to be talking about pest control. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll make sure to address them as soon as we can. I think this workshop will be pretty quick, not as long as the other ones. So make sure to get your questions in, whether it be about pest control or any of the other gardening topics that you might have questions about. We welcome them all. And without further ado, I'll have Emma, our CODICE program manager and our curriculum writer, come up and get us started. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Emma Dewey. I'm the program manager for our CODICE program, and I'll be presenting our curriculum for today. We're going to go over some natural pest control methods for this morning. So yeah, let's get started. So one of the most effective ways for controlling pests in your garden space is to use companion planting. So for those of you who are on Zoom, I don't know if you can see this very well, but beneficial plant combinations are a really effective way for managing pest populations in your garden. And what I mean by that is by planting different plants like marigolds. You can also plant different herbs that have really strong aromas. So things like mint, rosemary, oregano, thyme, different herbs like that are really effective at deterring pests in your garden. So planting those next to your other plants can be really effective. Another really effective way to use companion planting is called trap cropping. Trap cropping is a method of basically planting a sacrificial crop. So in this method, you would basically plant a separate garden space that is essentially specifically for the pests in your garden. So this can be like planting a tomato plant that is especially for the hornworms. This can also be like planting things like cabbage or nasturtiums or squash in this little space that are specifically meant to attract pests. And when you do that, you can more easily manage the pests that are attracted to that space. And it attracts them away from your garden space. So that's one way that you can use companion planting. Another method besides companion planting that you can use is biological control. So biological control is using things like predatory insects. So we're going to go over that a little bit later in our workshop. But predatory insects include things like praying mantises, ladybugs, parasitic wasps. There are also beetles. There's all kinds of different bugs that we'll talk about later. But using different insects like that are really, really awesome for controlling pest populations in your garden. Another really awesome biological control that you can use is beneficial birds. Attracting birds in your garden space
can help to control pest populations by basically the birds eating the insects that are attracted to your garden space. So one of the ways that you can attract the birds to your space is by providing food and water for the birds that are attracted to your area. So putting out bird feeders, having a bird bath, different things like that can help to attract birds that eat the pests in your garden. Some species of birds like sparrows, swallows, chickadees, and wrens are really common birds that eat the pests that specifically target garden spaces. And then one of the other ways that you can use biological controls is a type of powder that's called diatomaceous earth. And diatomaceous earth is actually what chalk is made out of. And this really fine powder, you can sprinkle around your plants. And the way that it works is by basically scratching the surface of hard-shelled bugs, and it makes them really vulnerable to sun. It dehydrates them and basically damages their outer shell so that they dry up and die. So it's a really effective tool for you to use. Next slide, please. So another awesome way that you can control pests in your garden is by using repellents and insect inhibitors. So there are some really awesome natural methods that you can use that are alternatives to using hardcore insecticides. So neem oil is a naturally derived oil that comes from plants. Comes from the neem tree, and it serves as a natural insect repellent. And the way that it works is by disrupting the life cycle of certain pests. And it also inhibits their ability to reproduce. So it cuts down significantly on their population. It's best used as a preventative. It doesn't work as well as a way to kill pests once they're already there. So it's better to use it ahead of time, and then it controls the population afterward. The best way to use it is by diluting it with water and then using it as a spray. So that's how you would use neem oil. Another method that we'll also talk about a little bit later is homemade repellents. You can create natural sprays by creating a mixture. Usually you would use a mixture of liquid soap. We don't recommend that you use detergents or antibacterial soaps because those can actually harm your plants. So use something like a natural Castile soap. Like Dr. Bronner's is a really popular type. And then you would mix that with, you can use either garlic or chili peppers is sometimes used, and water. And then also vegetable oil is a common ingredient as well. And then you would just spray this mixture on your plants to kill insects. You do have to have direct contact with the insects in order to kill them. So this is not really an effective solution for preventing insects. You would want to use something like neem oil to prevent the insects, and then use something like a homemade repellent to actually kill them. So the other option that you could use is essential oils. And this is something that you can actually use in combination with your homemade repellent. Adding the essential oils can actually add additional benefits to that because insects are really, they don't like the essential oils. They're repelled by them, much like the herbs that are aromatic that you can plant in your garden. So adding those to your repellents is really effective. And it also helps to disrupt their reproductive cycle. So it can reduce your pest populations as well. Another method that you can use is just physical methods. And this is probably the best tool that you can keep in your pocket. And even though it's one of the more gross kind of methods that you could use, like I said, it's one of the most effective ones that you can use. So one of the best ones is using a physical barrier. We use in farming something called a row cover. And this is a fabric material that you can use in combination with metal hoops to just cover your garden space. So you would lay the fabric over the hoop, and that creates a barrier that prevents the insects from getting inside that space and getting into your plants. So that's a really awesome way to create a physical barrier. It still allows water and light to penetrate the fabric so that insects stay out, but water and sunlight is still able to get in. Another physical method that you can use is disrupting the reproduction cycle. And the way that you can do that is by rotating your crops in different spaces each year. A lot of insects will lay their eggs in the soil, and the larvae continue to grow and live in that space. So when you plant squash in the same spot year after year, what you're doing is allowing that cycle of pests to continue to reproduce and continue the cycle of killing your squash plants. So I would recommend every year that you plant your squash in a different spot in your garden. And what that does is it disrupts the reproductive cycle of those squash bugs, so that it reduces the pest population, and it makes it a lot easier for you to control. You can also use that method for other plants. The squash is just an example, but yeah, rotating your crops in different spaces is really crucial. And then the gross part, the manual removal. You can do this in a number of different ways, but one of the best ways that I like is to remove the eggs from the plants. And this is, it's the easiest way to prevent them from growing into full-size bugs, right? So, and it also prevents the squish factor, so you don't have to squish full-size bugs. And the way that you can do this is by taking a piece of duct tape and you just put it sticky side down onto the underside of the leaf. So sticky side is this hand and this is the underside of the leaf. And then you just stick it like that. And then when you have your tape full of eggs, you just put that in a bucket of soapy water. And that will drown the eggs so that they don't come back, they don't hatch or anything like that. And that is the most effective way that both myself and other farmers have found to control pest populations. When you do have full-size bugs, taking them off the plants and again putting them in that soapy water to drown them is one of the best methods that you can use. Then yeah, just making sure that you're monitoring your plants regularly. And removing as many plants, as many eggs as you can find is going to be your best tool. Using your eyes and your other senses, that's really the best tool that you can have. And yeah, those are the best methods that you can use. So let's move to the next slide. So here are some of the recipes for different repellents that you can create. So for the homemade insecticidal soap, you have 2.5 tablespoons of vegetable oil combined with 2.5 tablespoons of the liquid Castile soap. And again, I really want to stress that you're using something that is not dish soap or a detergent and not antibacterial soap, because those are going to harm your plants. And you're going to mix that with 1 gallon of warm water. And then you can add 3 to 5 drops of essential oil. And some examples of the essential oil that you can use are like peppermint, lavender, or eucalyptus. Those are really strong scents that work really well. And then you're just going to combine those ingredients and you're going to mix it really well. And then you're going to pour it into a spray bottle. And then right before you spray the bugs on your plants, you're just going to make sure that you shake it really well to combine them. And then, like I mentioned, you do have to have direct contact with that spray on the bugs for it to be effective. So definitely make sure that you're spraying directly on the bugs. And then other tips for using this spray is never apply the spray when the temperatures outside are above 90 degrees. This spray has the potential to burn your plants, so make sure that it's not too hot outside when you're using the spray. It's also best if you use the spray when the sun is not out. Again, like I said, the spray, even though it's natural, can still burn your plants. So it's best to use it during early morning or evening hours. I still recommend, because this spray does have the potential to burn your plants, that you spray on a small area of your plants to test it out first, just to see how it affects your plants. Because you don't want to spray it on the whole plant and then have your whole plant be burned. That's definitely never a fun time. So another alternative spray that you can use is one that can deter different animals from your garden. We have a lot of issues with stray dogs that come around, especially like around Pueblo areas. So we also have issues with ground squirrels, gophers, rabbits. Some areas even have elk and bears that come around. So this can be a really effective spray for keeping some of those animals away. So for this one, this uses chili to deter the animals. So for this one, you're gonna make a really, really high concentrate chili mixed with water. So for this one, you need 3 tablespoons or more of hot chili flakes. If you're trying to deter something like elk or bear, you're going to use double that. So you want to use 5 or 6 tablespoons if you have bigger animals that you're trying to keep away. You're going to mix that with 1 gallon of water and 2 teaspoons of liquid Castile soap. So for the instructions on this one, you're going to combine the chili flakes and the water in a large pot. You're going to bring that to a boil. Put the lid on and simmer it for about 15 minutes on medium heat and stir it occasionally. Then you're going to remove it from the heat and let it stand with the lid on for a minimum of 24 hours. And that's really important because you want the chili to infuse in the water. Some people like to let it sit for more than that. So you could let it sit for up to 2 days if you wanted to. You could let it sit for even longer than that. And then you want to strain out the chili flakes and then pour the liquid, or reserve the liquid rather, and then you mix the soap in and mix it up really good. And then you can pour it into a spray bottle and make sure that you use it within 2 to 3 months. And then right before you use it, just make sure that you shake it up really good to get that even mixture, and then you can spray it. Now for this spray, you definitely do not want to spray this directly on your plants. This is absolutely going to burn your plants. So this is something that you want to use around your fence lines. You can spray it around your plants. Just make absolutely sure that you're not spraying anything directly on your plants. This is also a spray that you're going to have to reapply weekly because it will lose its strength. And then also anytime that it rains or if it gets wet from watering, you're also going to want to reapply it. So yeah, I hope those 2 recipes help. We can also send out PDFs, or we have the YouTube version of this workshop available, so you can review these recipes later as well. And we'll have them on our website for you to review as well. And we're gonna go ahead and take a break now, go ahead and get some water, and we'll come back in a few minutes.
Good morning, everyone. Emma's going to take a quick break, but I just want to say thank you so much for taking this morning and coming with us. I sincerely apologize. I should have sent this notification late yesterday. I completely forgot, but thank you so much for coming today. We will be posting this workshop on our YouTube page. And as far as those recipes and other things that Emma has prepared for us, we'll more likely have it on our website. The specific page on Sembrando Salud is a little bit old, so it should be getting a couple updates soon. If you didn't get a chance to pick up your supplies and you're in Albuquerque, we had 2 events yesterday and the day before. One was in Casa Barelas and one was in the International Public Library. If you were able to come, thank you so much for passing by. I hope you were one of the few but really lucky individuals that were able to take a tree home. Talking about trees, if you were able to get a tree and you need more information, please feel free to contact Tree New Mexico. They have a lot of information for you. If you need to talk about gardening supplies or anything like that, let us know. We're gonna put our phone numbers in the chat. If you need questions answered about plants or pests or anything that has to do with gardening, you'll call Emma, and if you need to call me for anything regarding the programming, as far as like where should I pick up my supplies if I wasn't able to make it Monday, or when are you going to come out to Laguna Pueblo or whatever, just let me know. I'll put my phone number. You can call me for those reasons. Once again, I sincerely apologize for the very late moment and email that you probably got letting you know that this workshop was going on. That's my fault. But thank you so much for coming in today. Once again, if you weren't able to make it to the 2 Albuquerque drop-offs, we, based on how many people are still waiting for the supplies, we might make another drop-off or just ask you to come and pick it up at our offices. We'll keep in touch. send me a message if you have any questions or if you weren't able to pick up our supplies and you're in Albuquerque. If you're anywhere else, say Santa Clara Pueblo or down in the mining district, we have different distribution days for those places. But if you still have questions, keep an eye on your email because that schedule will be coming out pretty soon. But thank you once again for coming by yesterday and the day before, and we'll be with you soon. Does anyone have any questions? Please put them in the chat. Unless you want to unmute yourself and ask them now. If it's regarding gardening, I'll let Emma answer that. If it's regarding programming or, why the hell was this email so late, that's my fault. But yeah, please feel free to put them in the chat. Katie will be answering those. I highly appreciate you folks being here today, and I'll pass this back to Emma.
If you think of any questions later, like Jose said, he's available. I'm available for any of your gardening questions, pest control. Yeah, I'm going to go over some of the different insects that you might be able to identify in your garden, both the pests as well as the beneficial insects. So yeah, let's go over some of these. I'm going to switch to this side so you can see the bugs. So what are these bugs? One of the most common ones and the most easily identifiable is the hornworm. This is the tomato worm. This is one of the greatest nemesis of the gardener. Usually they're fluorescent green, and they turn into the sphinx moth, which is actually a beneficial bug. But when they're in their larva stage, they are definitely a huge garden pest. Characteristics, how you know that you have them, you're gonna have lots of holes in your tomato foliage and your tomatoes, and they're usually really big. They're very easy to spot. One of the ways that you can prevent them is by attracting parasitic wasps to your garden. Parasitic wasps actually lay their eggs inside of the caterpillars, which kills them. So that's a really awesome way to keep your hornworm populations in check. You can also use trap cropping. I talked a little bit about that method earlier. Planting a little tomato plant or a couple away from your garden space can be a really awesome way to attract hornworms away from your garden and provide them with a different food source that you can control them with. The other biggest nemesis of gardeners is the squash bug. These guys are terrible. This picture has both the little babies in the picture as well as the adults. One of the things to note about the squash bug is that the shoulders of the squash bug are rounded. And that's really important because there's another bug that looks very similar to the squash bug called the soldier beetle, which is actually a beneficial bug. And they have little shoulders that have points on them. So it's really, really easy to mistake them for one another, but one is bad and the other one is really good. So we'll go over soldier bugs in a little bit. But squash bugs, they're usually a brown-gray colored bug. And they also usually have kind of a stinky smell when they're squished. Baby squash bugs are usually like a blue-gray kind of color when they are babies and they move really fast. The way that they work is that they inject toxins into the plant stems that cause yellowing, and it turns the plants brown and black, and then they also eat the plants as well. One of the ways that you can prevent them is, like I mentioned, rotating your squash crops. So making sure that you're moving the position of your plants into different positions each year. And then also using the physical barrier. So using a row cover to protect your plants while they're growing. You can also use companion planting, nasturtiums, oregano, and also marigolds are really awesome companion plants for squash. Another one that I haven't tried myself, but others have told me about, is planting coyote or buffalo gourds next to your squash plants, because squash bugs are attracted to them, but they taste so nasty that squash bugs decide that all of the squash plants in that area are nasty, so they move away. So that could be an effective strategy for you to try. Again, removing them, I would recommend using the manual method for that. Using the duct tape on the underside of the leaves to remove the eggs is going to be the best strategy for removing. Or you can just take the adult bugs and the babies and put them in the soapy water to drown them. That's going to be the best way to manually remove them. Next slide. Okay. Another really common bug that you'll find in your garden is aphids. Aphids are usually tiny little pear-shaped green or white insects. Sometimes they have wings, and they usually excrete sugars that leave a really sticky kind of residue on the plant leaves. Ants actually herd aphids like little sheep, which is really interesting. They keep them like cattle and use the sugars like milk. So usually if you see a lot of ants in your area, you're going to find aphids. So yellowing or wilting of the leaves is a good way to identify that you have an aphid problem. Aphids also spread diseases, so symptoms of disease might also be present on your plants. One of the best prevention strategies is to encourage predator insects like lacewings, ladybugs, and praying mantises. For control methods, you can use a homemade insecticidal soap spray, or you can also use the neem oil to prevent them. Another common insect is the Colorado potato beetle. They're usually hard-shelled beetles. They're about the same size and the same shape as a ladybug, but they have black and yellow stripes down their back. You'll know that you have these bugs because there's going to be holes in the leaves. Leaves will be entirely eaten sometimes. And then usually you'll have the presence of a whole bunch of beetles. So they'll be very easy to see. And typically they prefer nightshade plants. So that's going to be anything in like the potato family, tomatoes, eggplant, and the chili and pepper family. Prevention, using row cover to protect the plants early in the season is going to be really effective. And then also rotating your crops every year. One of the best control methods is to just remove as many eggs and the beetles from leaves as quickly as possible, and then to drown them in the soapy water solution. To prevent them, you can also spray with the neem oil. Next one is cutworms. Cutworms live in the soil. So yeah, usually you'll see stems that have been entirely cut from the bottom. That's why they're called cutworms. And you'll notice that you'll have completely shriveled and dying plants. So that's a really easy way to identify them. For prevention, this one is a pretty creative method. You can use a paper towel or a toilet paper tubes to make a little collar for the base of your plant. And that protects the base of your plant from the cutworm getting to the stem of your plant. Also, these are really great food for insects, predatory insects, and for birds. So if you're attracting your beneficial insects and your birds to your garden space, they're going to love these guys. So that's a really good prevention method. Also, for control, you can sprinkle diatomaceous earth or coffee grounds around your plants. Spraying often doesn't work because they live in the soil. So that makes it a little bit difficult. But using the diatomaceous earth is typically pretty effective. There's also the, come on in. Hi. There's also the flea beetle. Flea beetles are tiny black jumping beetles that resemble fleas, and they lay their eggs at the base of the plant. The characteristics of the flea beetle is that you'll have a bunch of holes chewed through the leaves. You'll also have dying plants from the larvae eating the plant roots. And then that was bad for you? Yeah. I lost my crop last
year. They were pulling down the roots, drying them.
Yeah.
We had plants that grew, like for example, beans. Beans. We had the beans there, but when we opened them, there was no beans inside.
Oh no!
There was no beans inside.
Yeah, the flea beetles can be really destructive. So one of the best ways that you can prevent them is by using the fabric row cover. And it's like a white fabric that you can put over like either metal or you can use like the PVC. What am the words I'm trying to use? The pipes, the PVC pipes that you get from the hardware store. You can just make those into a hoop over your garden and then put the fabric over them. And then that keeps the flea beetles from getting inside. And that works really well. The other thing that you can use if you don't want to do the fabric is to sprinkle, it's called diatomaceous earth. And it's the same powder that chalk is made out of. But it just comes in a powder form. And you can get that at hardware stores or garden centers. And you just sprinkle that around your plant. And that helps to deter them. And it also kills them because it scratches up their shell. And then once the sun hits them, they get dehydrated and they dry out and die.
Does that material or the whatever, the powder, does it go in the ground at times where it can kill maybe the eggs underneath?
It doesn't kill the
or kind of like mix it with rake.
You can mix it with a rake and it'll help with like some of these other ones that live in the soil. But the flea beetles, it'll scratch up their eggs. But you want to make sure that you're keeping the powder on the surface of the soil. Because when it gets wet, it kind of loses its effectiveness. So yeah, if you're watering, you just want to make sure that you're keeping that powder kind of on top. Yeah. You can also, another effective thing that you can use for the black ants is boric acid, which is it is naturally derived. Some people kind of feel like it's not one of the best things to use because it can be unsafe for pets and small children. So it's one of those things that you just have to be really careful about. But it is really effective for controlling black ants. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of other solutions that are very effective for controlling ants. So that's one of the best things that I would recommend. For the aphids, again, I would just recommend using the predator insects as much as possible. They are the best defense against aphids. Your ladybugs and praying mantises they're so great at eating aphids. Ladybugs in particular, they can eat up to 5,000 aphids each during their lifetime. So the more ladybugs you have, they're just going to eat all the aphids that you have. Yeah.
Not to bother them.
Yep.
But
they like to hold them. Yeah. And then again, like using your homemade insect repellent with the soapy water, that is really effective for controlling the aphids too. So if you're using that, that's going to help to keep the black ants away, and then you can better control the black ants with the boric acid. So hopefully that helps out with that situation. Other way. Cool. So now we can talk a little bit more about the beneficial insects. So the lacewing is one that gets confused with a pest a lot. But lacewings are one of the most beneficial insects that you can have. They are especially hungry for aphids. They also eat other pests, and they do not bite or sting. So don't be afraid of them. They eat, like I said, aphids. They also eat scale insects, white flies, which are really attracted to cabbages and other leafy greens, and lots of other pests as well. So one of the best ways that you can attract them is to just keep a consistent crop of flowers growing. So I like to plant like a wildflower mix in my garden because a lot of the seed varieties that come in there will have a variety of plants that grow both in the cold season as well as the warm season. So that keeps flowers blooming throughout the year. And that helps to keep lacewings popular in your garden. And then next is the ladybug. Pretty much everybody knows ladybugs. But like I said, ladybugs they're so great for aphid control. They have a pretty insatiable appetite. They can eat up to 5,000 aphids each over their lifetime. And they can also help to get rid of other soft-bodied insects like mites, mealybugs, and leafhoppers, which are pretty destructive plants. They can also eat insect eggs, and they do sometimes eat ants. So they can help to control those populations as well. Ladybugs really like pollen-rich flowers. So things like yarrow is a really good flower or herb that you can grow.
What's a yarrow?
Yarrow.
Sample.
I don't have a picture of one today, but it grows usually you'll see it around like it's yellow and it grows like gosh, I can't think of an example right now. Have you ever seen like what a carrot looks like when it turns into like a seed? Mm-hmm. It kind of looks like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I know.
Yeah, sometimes they're different colors.
A lot with wild growth that comes up, and we do pick some as for our cooking our wild weeds. Not so much weeds, but they're lifesavers.
Yes.
When it comes to getting sick.
Yes. It is a medicinal plant.
It is something that we do. Yeah. Especially me and my husband, we do pick a lot of those. All of those, like what you say, the bloom that comes up, and there's like a top yellow portion of it.
Yes.
Wash them and save it.
Nice.
Perfect. That's yarrow, and it has lots of pollen on it, so ladybugs love that. So different flowers that have lots of pollen on them like that. They also really like to have places to hibernate in the winter time. So instead of cleaning up your garden in the winter, if you wait until the springtime to do that, you can leave a lot of places for ladybugs to find shelter. And also other things like native bees really like to have spaces like that too, like hollow stems or like the mulch that you like leaves and different stuff like that. The next bug that we're going to talk about is the parasitic wasp. That's this guy. These guys, people are usually pretty scared of because they look scary, but they don't usually sting. These guys are really great pollinators, and what they do is they lay their eggs inside of other bugs, and that is how they control pest populations. And then they also do eat some other pests as well. So some of the smaller soft-bodied insects like the cutworms and things like that, they'll both lay their eggs inside of and eat them as well. The ways to attract them, they really like food sources from the herb family. So things like dill, fennel, and cilantro, those are really good food sources for them. And they also really like sunflowers, asters, and daisies. So anything that you see flower-wise that kind of looks like a sun, those are going to be attractive to the parasitic wasp.
A lot of sunflowers.
Perfect. They love sunflowers. And then they also really like having a water source. So in my garden, I have a bunch of the little saucers that come with your flower pots. So I just put those outside and I put a little bit of water in those. And the parasitic wasps and lots of other bugs like butterflies and bees really like to just take a little drink of water from those because they're small. So that's a really great way to attract them as well. All right. Now these are the bugs that I was talking about that can get really easily mistaken for squash bugs. The assassin bug, this is one of the scary looking kind of bugs that people think is a garden pest, but they're actually one of the most beneficial bugs you have in your garden. They prey on armyworms, they eat tomato worms, they eat aphids, mealybugs, leaf beetles, and they also eat lots of other insects that eat your plants. So they're a really great bug to have in your garden.
That's almost like the bug that goes underneath our watermelon, squash.
Yeah.
And they dry them up. They dry up our plants.
Yeah.
So is that something that's washing? Can we?
So these bugs are good ones. This bug that I'm going to talk about, this one is a beneficial bug, but it looks almost exactly like the squash bug. So I'll talk about that one in just a second. But for the assassin bug, this one of the best ways to attract it is just by adding a bunch of mulch to your yard. So if you have, kind of the same thing as the parasitic, or not the parasitic wasp, it's the other one I was talking about. Ladybugs. If you have a bunch of spaces for them to hide in, that's a really great way to keep them in your garden. So now, the spiny soldier bug, this guy, the main way that you can tell the difference from this one to the squash bug is that this guy has these little shoulders that have a little spine on it. The squash bug, he's gonna have little rounded shoulders. Yeah, he's got these little pointy things over here. And you're not gonna see very many of them. When you see the squash bugs, you're gonna see a lot of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when you see the soldier bugs, just look for those little pointy things. If you don't see them, that's a squash bug. And also they're a type of stink bug. So typically, like if you touch him or if you get close to him or anything like that, he's gonna send out that stinky smell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That smell.
Yeah. So you'll know that he's a spiny soldier bug because he's gonna smell stinky.
Okay.
Yeah. And so these guys, they prey on caterpillars and other soft-bodied larvae of beetles and sawflies. So they're going to be really effective for controlling things like the cutworms and tomato worms, any kind of worms that you see in the garden. And they also are really great for handling any medium to large insects that are within reach. So they often will attack bugs that are like 2 to 3 sizes bigger than they are. So they're really, really awesome bugs to have. They really like brightly colored flowers. So if you have anything that is like zinnias that come in lots of bright colors, or marigolds, poppies, or wildflower mixes that have a whole bunch of different colors, they're going to be really attracted to those. And then the last one that I have for you today is going to be ground beetles. Sometimes people get freaked out by these guys because they come in lots of different sizes. Sometimes they can be like really big guys, but they're always good. Ground beetles are good guys. And they also feed on a whole range of different pests. So they eat aphids, they eat caterpillars, beetle larvae, they eat mites, they eat pretty much everything. Some of them also eat snails. So if you have any problems with snails, ground beetles can be effective for controlling those. And another cool thing about them is that they also sometimes will eat weed seeds. So if you have a lot of weeds that are growing in your yard, if you see ground beetles, these guys are sometimes helping you to control your weeds as well. So one of the ways that you can help keep these guys in your garden is by planting a bunch of perennial things in your space. So those are things that are going to grow every year. They're going to keep coming back every year. So some vegetables that you can grow are asparagus, artichokes, or you can grow a variety of different herbs. And keeping those guys, those types of plants in the ground, having their roots in the ground is going to provide a really good habitat for the ground beetle. Compost and mulch are also going to help a lot. So, yeah, I think those are all the buttons that I have for us today. Obviously, there's a whole lot of other ones. I also wanted to mention today that bees are one of the most obvious beneficial insects that we have. There are over 200 native bee species in New Mexico, and they all look different. Some of them look like flies, some of them look like mosquitoes, some of them look like little gnats. So if you have a question about what kind of bug something is, I would always just check with like the New Mexico State University Extension website. Just take a look at what the native bee species are, because more often than not, it probably is a native bee. There, like I said, there's over 200 different species that live in New Mexico, and most of them don't sting. They just want to live their life. They just want to pollinate flowers and do their thing. So I think that's it for today. Does anybody have any questions? I know we've got people in Zoom. Any questions in the chat today?
Did I miss a lot in the
we had a good section there on
and it's on here?
Yeah, everything's in there. Yep.
All right. Thank you, folks, for joining us today. Thank you so much, Emma, for being here today. So if you have any questions regarding gardening, pests, any questions within that area, please, you could text Emma some pictures. You can give her a call. Her number is 505-219-1649. But if you have any questions regarding supplies, when the next workshop will be, me giving you the next Zoom link and time, give me a call. My phone number is 505-221-6602. If you have any questions, please let us know, or if email is better, you can find us at info@centersouthwestculture.org. These are our different social media platforms. Please give us a call, send us an email. We would love to hear from you. If you are not in Albuquerque and you're waiting for your supplies, please check your email, check your spam folder, because soon we'll be sending our schedule of the different dates we plan on being in different pueblos to drop off supplies. Thank you so much for being here. We highly appreciate your time, and we'll hope to see you soon.